The asteroid meeting chamber was a marvel of cooperation between two completely different technologies. Viridian energy sculptures created beautiful curved walls that glowed with soft light, while human life support systems maintained perfect atmospheric conditions for both species. Jake Morrison stood across from Supreme Coordinator Malthus in a moment that would be remembered throughout galactic history. Malthus was taller than Jake had expected, with smooth blue skin and the bioluminescent patches that showed his emotional state. Right now, those patches glowed a careful neutral white that indicated diplomatic caution. Behind him stood Science Coordinator Veltari and two other aliens whose titles Jake did not yet understand. Jake had brought Bennett Phillips and Hayes as his diplomatic team. Each human carried translation devices and recording equipment, but no weapons beyond basic sidearms that were clearly visible to show they were not trying to hide anything dangerous. The first hour of the meeting involved careful exchanges of basic information about their respective civilizations. Jake learned that the Viridian Collective included over 2,000 inhabited worlds and had existed peacefully for tens of thousands of years. Malthus discovered that humanity controlled only one world, but had spread to several nearby star systems in just a few centuries. Phillips found the most significant revelation when she asked about the development of Viridian technology. Malthus explained that his people had achieved spaceflight through cooperation with other species who shared their knowledge freely. Most galactic civilizations had developed along similar paths with peaceful contact and mutual assistance from older, more advanced neighbors. Bennett realized the implications immediately. Humanity had developed all their technology in complete isolation without any outside help or guidance. Humans had been forced to solve every problem themselves, including the dangerous ones that other species had avoided with help from their galactic neighbors. Malthus asked the question that had been troubling the collective since first contact. Captain Morrison, your ship carries weapons that could destroy our entire fleet. Your reactor produces more energy than our homeworld's primary power station. Why do peaceful explorers need such dangerous capabilities? Jake considered his answer carefully before responding. Supreme Coordinator, we developed our technology alone on a world that seemed empty of intelligent life. We had to assume that space might contain threats we could not imagine, so we built our ships to handle any possible danger. We never intended to threaten anyone, we just wanted to be prepared. The explanation caused Malthus' bioluminescent patches to shift through several colors as he processed the implications. Veltari accessed her portable computer and cross-referenced human technological capabilities with historical records of ancient galactic wars. Hayes noticed the change in alien behavior and asked if their explanation had caused some kind of problem. Malthus exchanged quick communications with his team before answering in a way that surprised everyone. Captain Morrison, your people may have unconsciously prepared for threats that we had forgotten existed. Our ancestors fought wars against enemies that could destroy star systems, but those conflicts ended millions of years ago. We thought such threats were extinct, but your technology suggests otherwise. Phillips leaned forward with intense curiosity. What kind of enemies required weapons powerful enough to destroy star systems? Our historical records only go back a few thousand years, but we have found no evidence of such ancient conflicts. Veltari activated her computer's holographic display and showed images from archaeological sites scattered across the galaxy. Ancient ruins on dead worlds showed evidence of battles fought with weapons that could crack planets and shatter moons. Entire civilizations had been wiped out by conflicts using technology similar to what humans considered standard equipment. Bennett studied the images and felt a chill as she realized what they meant. Humanity had independently developed the same kinds of weapons that ancient galactic civilizations had needed to fight some terrible enemy. Either humans were naturally warlike, or they had instinctively prepared for threats that still existed somewhere in the galaxy. Malthus continued his explanation with growing concern visible in his shifting light patterns. Those ancient wars ended when the enemy retreated to the dark spaces between galaxies. We thought they were gone forever, but your arrival suggests they may return. Species like yours only develop such weapons when facing extinction-level threats. Jake felt the weight of cosmic responsibility settling on his shoulders. Are you saying that humanity might be the first species in millions of years to be properly prepared for these ancient enemies? The answer came from an unexpected source. Elder historian Kyle Beth joined the meeting through holographic communication from the collective's archives on their homeworld. Her ancient voice carried the wisdom of millennia as she shared knowledge that few beings in the galaxy still remembered. Young. Human Captain, your species has achieved something remarkable. You have mastered technologies that we abandoned because we feared their power. But those technologies may be exactly what the galaxy needs when the darkness returns from beyond the stars. Clark received this information through his communication link with the meeting and immediately understood why the aliens had been so worried. Human engineering had unknowingly recreated weapons systems designed to fight enemies capable of destroying civilizations. The Liberty was not just a warship, it was a vessel built to fight cosmic-level threats. Turner detected increased communication traffic from the alien fleet as news of the meeting spread. Ships that had been waiting in formation were now actively preparing for departure. Some were heading toward the galactic core to spread news of humanity's arrival, while others were moving toward the outer rim, where ancient threats might still lurk. Veltari shared technical data that amazed Phillips. The aliens had access to scientific knowledge accumulated over millions of years, but they had deliberately avoided developing certain technologies because of their potential for misuse. Humans had developed those same technologies because they had no choice but to face every challenge alone. Hayes learned that the alien fleet contained representatives from dozens of species who had come specifically to evaluate humanity's potential as either ally or threat. The consensus was shifting toward viewing humans as potentially valuable defenders of galactic civilization. Malthus made a proposal that would change everything. Captain Morrison, the collective wishes to offer humanity membership in our galactic community, but we also ask that you consider a special role. Your ships and weapons may be needed to defend against threats that we are not prepared to face. Jake looked at his team and saw the same mixture of excitement and concern in their faces. Humanity was being offered a place in galactic civilization, but also being asked to serve as guardians against ancient enemies that might return from the void. Phillips spoke up with a question that everyone was thinking. Supreme Coordinator, if these ancient threats are so dangerous, why did your civilizations abandon the weapons needed to fight them? Kyle Beth answered with the wisdom of painful experience. We abandoned those weapons because they nearly destroyed us. The power to crack worlds is also the power to accidentally destroy your own civilization. We chose peace and cooperation over the ability to wage cosmic war. But perhaps that was a mistake. Bennett realized the tragic irony of the situation. The galaxy had achieved peace by abandoning military technology, but in doing so, they had left themselves defenseless against threats that required exactly those weapons. Humanity had kept developing dangerous technologies because they had no one to tell them it was unnecessary. Clark suggested that humans could teach other species how to safely use advanced military technology while learning about peaceful cooperation and galactic civilization. The combination of human military capabilities and alien wisdom could create something stronger than either alone. The meeting concluded with agreements that would reshape the galaxy. Humanity would join the collective as equal members while also accepting special responsibility for defending against cosmic-level threats. Human ships would escort alien vessels through dangerous regions, while alien scientists would help humans develop even more advanced, peaceful technologies. Jake became humanity's first galactic ambassador, while Malthus agreed to visit Earth and help establish formal diplomatic relations. The Liberty would escort a collective fleet to the solar system carrying news that humanity had been unconsciously preparing for a role they never knew they would need to fill. As the meeting ended, Phillips made one final observation that put everything in perspective. It seems that our isolation forced us to become exactly what the galaxy needed most. We developed the strength to protect civilization because we had no civilization to protect us. The ancient threats lurking in the dark spaces between stars would eventually return, as they had countless times before. But this time, the galaxy would be ready, because humanity had spent millennia unknowingly preparing to stand guard against the darkness that threatened all intelligent life. Supreme War Coordinator Malthus stood in the great assembly chamber surrounded by representatives from hundreds of worlds across the Viridian Collective. The chamber had not seen such activity in over 1,000 years. Species from every corner of their territory had sent delegates to discuss the human situation and what it meant for galactic civilization. The holographic displays showed detailed analysis of the Liberty and its crew. Every scan, result, and communication attempt had been studied by the collective's best scientists and military experts. The conclusion was unanimous and terrifying. Humanity represented either the greatest threat the galaxy had ever faced or the most powerful potential ally anyone could imagine. Elder historian Kyle Beth accessed the ancient archives and presented evidence that other species had used similar technologies millions of years ago. Those civilizations had fought wars that left entire star systems uninhabitable and created the dead zones that still existed in some parts of the galaxy. The historical record suggested that such weapons were only developed when species faced extinction-level threats. Jake Morrison watched the alien fleet grow larger each day, but maintained his position near the original contact point. The Liberty had become the center of what looked like a massive alien gathering. Ships of dozens of different designs had arrived from all directions, and they were all watching the human vessel with intense interest. Bennett had been analyzing the alien ships and found fascinating differences in their construction methods. Each species seemed to have developed technology along completely different paths from humans. Their ships were beautiful and efficient, but they all shared one common trait. None of them were designed for serious warfare. The revelation troubled Phillips as she studied the implications. The galaxy seemed to be populated by peaceful species that had never needed to develop the kind of weapons humans considered standard equipment. Either humans were uniquely warlike, or they had evolved in a much more dangerous environment than these aliens. Turner finally achieved a breakthrough in communications when one of the alien ships responded to his mathematical sequences. The response was simple, but clear. The aliens could understand human transmissions, and they wanted to establish formal contact protocols. Turner worked with Phillips to develop a basic translation system using mathematical concepts. Hayes monitored the growing alien fleet and noticed they were organizing into distinct groups based on ship design and behavior patterns. She counted at least 15 different species represented in the gathering. All of them seemed to be here specifically to observe the humans, and none showed any signs of hostility. Clark continued his engineering demonstrations and noticed that each new display of human technology caused increased activity among the alien ships. When he showed how the Liberty's shields could deflect asteroid impacts, the alien communications traffic increased dramatically. When he demonstrated the ship's ability to maneuver at high speed while maintaining perfect life support, the aliens seemed even more impressed. Zethka received permission from the War Council to attempt direct communication with the human captain. The decision had taken days of debate because no one was sure how to approach a species that carried enough firepower to threaten entire worlds, but claimed to be peaceful explorers. The communication came as a surprise to Jake when Turner announced that one of the alien ships was transmitting on a clear frequency using basic English words. The message was simple, but historic. "Greetings, human captain. We wish to talk about peace and understanding between our peoples." Jake responded immediately through Turner's communication system. "Greetings, alien friends. We are peaceful explorers from Earth, and we want to learn about your civilization. We hope we can be friends and help each other." The response took several hours to arrive because Zethka had to consult with his superiors before each transmission. "We are representatives of the Viridian Collective. We govern many worlds in this region of space. Your ship shows technologies that concern us. We need to understand your intentions." Phillips helped Jake compose a response that would reassure the aliens without revealing too much about human capabilities. "We are explorers from the planet Earth. This is our first contact with alien intelligence. We use advanced technology, but only for peaceful purposes like exploration and defense." The word defense caused another long delay in alien communications. Malthus called an emergency session to discuss what humans might need to defend against. The galaxy had been peaceful for millennia, so what threats had forced humanity to develop such powerful weapons? Bennett detected that the alien fleet was repositioning itself into what looked like a formal diplomatic formation. The ships arranged themselves in perfect geometric patterns that seemed designed to show respect and peaceful intentions. She told Jake that the aliens were preparing for some kind of official ceremony. A new ship arrived that was larger and more elaborate than any of the others. Foster tracked its approach and noted that all the other alien vessels moved aside to give it a place of honor at the center of the formation. Hayes identified it as probably carrying the alien equivalent of a high-ranking diplomat or military commander. The new ship transmitted a formal message in much better English than the previous communications. "I am Supreme Coordinator Malthus of the Viridian Collective. I speak for many worlds and many species. We request formal meeting to discuss your people and ours. Will you accept diplomatic contact?" Jake felt the weight of history as he realized he was about to become humanity's first ambassador to an alien civilization. He accepted the meeting request and proposed that representatives from both sides meet aboard a neutral location to ensure everyone felt safe. Turner coordinated with the aliens to establish a meeting point halfway between the Liberty and the alien fleet. The alien suggested using a small asteroid that could be easily modified to provide a suitable meeting space. Both sides would bring small teams and minimal equipment to avoid any appearance of threat. Clark worked with Phillips to design portable life support equipment that would allow humans to survive in whatever environment the aliens preferred. They also prepared translation devices and recording equipment to document this historic first meeting between humanity and galactic civilization. Hayes selected a security team to accompany Jake to the meeting, but the captain insisted they carry only basic defensive equipment. He wanted to show the aliens that humans were confident enough in their peaceful intentions to meet with minimal protection. Malthus faced similar decisions about what kind of delegation to send to meet the humans. The collective's greatest scientists wanted to study human technology, while the military leaders worried about security. The diplomatic corps insisted that this meeting could determine whether humanity would join galactic civilization as friends or enemies. The asteroid meeting site was quickly modified by both sides working together. The aliens used sophisticated energy beams to create smooth chambers inside the rock, while humans contributed advanced life support systems that could accommodate both species comfortably. Bennett made a disturbing discovery while preparing for the meeting. Her analysis of the alien fleet showed that even their largest warships carried less firepower than a single human patrol vessel. The entire alien fleet would be helpless if the Liberty decided to attack. This suggested that humans had developed military technology far beyond anything the galaxy had seen before. Phillips calculated that the technological gap between humans and aliens was similar to the difference between modern battleships and ancient sailing vessels. Humanity had somehow leapfrogged thousands of years of normal technological development to reach capabilities that other species considered impossible. Jake prepared for the most important meeting in human history, knowing that his words and actions would determine how Earth would be received by galactic civilization. He had no idea that the aliens were just as worried about making a good impression. Both sides wanted peace, but neither understood why the other seemed so powerful and dangerous. The stage was set for a diplomatic encounter that would change the galaxy forever. Representatives of two completely different approaches to civilization were about to meet and try to understand each other. The outcome would determine whether humanity would be welcomed as an ally or feared as a threat by the thousands of species that made up the peaceful galactic community. Zethka felt his bioluminescent patches pulsing bright red as the final scanning reports appeared on his displays. In his 300 years of service to the Viridian Collective, he had never seen anything like this. The human ship was not just advanced, it was built using technologies that his people had declared too dangerous for any civilized species to use. The War Council responded to his emergency call within minutes. Supreme War Coordinator Malthus appeared on the main communications screen looking stern and worried. Behind him stood other members of the Council, all showing the orange and red light patterns that meant extreme concern. "Explain the situation, Zethka," Malthus said in the formal tone used for serious military matters. "Why have you called the War Council for the first time in 3 centuries? Zethka sent the scanning data to the council chambers and watched, as their light patterns shifted from concern to shock. The readings showed a species that had mastered stellar engineering and weaponized it for routine use. The humans had turned their ships into mobile weapons platforms that could fight wars against entire civilizations. Veltari continued studying the human vessel and found more disturbing evidence of their capabilities. The ship's manufacturing showed signs of rapid mass production. The humans were not building experimental vessels, they were creating standardized warships using assembly line methods. This meant there were probably hundreds or thousands of ships just like the Liberty. On the Liberty, Foster noticed that more alien ships were arriving every hour. The newcomers were larger than the first vessel, and they moved in formation like military units. She counted 12 ships now, and more were appearing on the long-range sensors. Jake told the crew to stay calm, but he ordered Hayes to make sure all weapons were ready just in case. Bennett detected that the alien ships were sharing information with each other through tight beam communications. The original ship was sending all its scanning data to the new arrivals. She could not understand the alien language, but the urgency in their transmissions was obvious, even without translation. Phillips studied the energy signatures from the alien fleet and realized that all their ships combined had less firepower than the Liberty. She found this puzzling because the aliens obviously had advanced technology. Their ships were beautifully designed and moved with perfect precision, but they seemed to be built for exploration and trade rather than warfare. Clark received a report from his engineering team that the alien scanning beams were now trying to analyze their manufacturing processes. The beams were looking at the atomic structure of the hull plates and trying to understand how humans could work with such dangerous materials. Clark was happy to show off human engineering skills, but he did not understand why the aliens seemed so worried. Turner picked up more transmissions from the alien fleet and ran them through the computer's language analysis programs. The computer could not translate the words, but it identified emotional patterns that suggested fear and confusion. The aliens were not preparing to attack. They were trying to understand what kind of threat humanity might represent. Zethka received new orders from the War Council. He was to maintain safe distance from the human ship and continue gathering information while a diplomatic fleet was assembled. The Council wanted to understand human intentions before deciding whether to welcome them into galactic civilization or prepare defenses against them. The Council had access to historical records going back millions of years. They found evidence of other species that had used similar technologies during ancient wars that nearly destroyed entire star systems. Those civilizations had either destroyed themselves or abandoned such dangerous weapons when they realized the risks. The humans seemed to have found a way to control these forces without destroying themselves. Veltari made a discovery that changed everything. The human ship's defensive systems included metamaterial armor that could theoretically absorb and redirect energy attacks. The Viridians had studied such materials for centuries, but considered them impossible to manufacture safely. The humans had not only built metamaterial armor, they had installed it as standard equipment on what appeared to be a routine patrol vessel. Hayes detected that the alien ships were running constant scans of local space looking for something. She wondered if they were searching for more human ships or checking for hidden weapons. The aliens seemed very nervous about the possibility that the Liberty was not alone. Jake made the decision to send a message directly to the alien fleet. He had Turner broadcast on all frequencies using mathematical concepts and peaceful symbols. The message explained that humans were peaceful explorers who wanted to make friends with other intelligent species. Jake hoped this would calm the aliens down. But Zethka interpreted the message differently. A species powerful enough to build ships like the Liberty would not need to send peaceful messages unless they were preparing for something much worse. The fact that humans were reaching out suggested they might be looking for allies against an enemy that even they could not fight alone. The War Council analyzed human technological development patterns and found something that terrified them. Humans had developed all their dangerous technologies independently without any outside help. This meant they had probably faced threats that required such extreme measures. The galaxy might be much more dangerous than the Viridians realized. Phillips noticed that the alien fleet was deploying in a defensive formation around the Liberty. The ships were not threatening, but they were positioned to respond quickly if anything went wrong. She told Jake that the aliens seemed to be more afraid of humans than hostile toward them. Clark made another adjustment to the reactor to demonstrate human engineering capabilities. He wanted to show the aliens that humans could control dangerous forces safely. The demonstration involved briefly increasing the reactor's output to levels that could power an entire city. Clark thought this would impress the aliens and prove that humans were technologically advanced. The demonstration had the opposite effect. Veltari watched in horror as the human ship casually manipulated energies that could tear apart planets. The humans were treating forces that could destroy civilizations like simple tools. This suggested a level of technological mastery that the Viridians could barely comprehend. Zethka realized that the humans might represent the solution to an ancient mystery. For millions of years, the Viridians had wondered why the galaxy's oldest civilizations had suddenly disappeared. Ancient ruins showed evidence of massive battles fought with weapons that could crack moons and shatter asteroids. The humans might be the first species powerful enough to survive whatever had destroyed those ancient empires. Bennett detected new energy patterns from the alien fleet as more ships arrived. The newcomers were different from the first group and seemed designed for long-range communication rather than combat. These ships immediately began broadcasting toward the center of the galaxy on frequencies that could reach across thousands of light years. Turner intercepted parts of these long-range transmissions and realized that the aliens were contacting their home government. The messages were marked with priority codes that suggested an emergency of the highest level. The aliens were treating first contact with humanity as a potential crisis that required immediate attention from their highest leaders. Hayes reported that the alien fleet now included 27 ships, with more arriving every few hours. Despite their numbers, the alien vessels maintained respectful distances and showed no signs of aggressive intent. They seemed to be waiting for instructions from their superiors about how to handle the human contact. Jake decided to wait patiently for the aliens to make the next move. He could see that they were worried about something, but he did not want to make the situation worse by acting aggressively. The Liberty could probably defeat the entire alien fleet, but Jake hoped that peaceful cooperation would be possible. Phillips made calculations based on the alien ship designs and realized that their civilization had probably been peaceful for thousands of years. Their vessels were optimized for efficiency and comfort rather than combat. The humans represented something completely outside their experience, and they were struggling to understand how to respond to such a militarily powerful species that claimed to be peaceful. High Examiner Zethka stood in the center of the Viridian ship's command chamber, watching the scanning results appear on the crystal displays around him. His bioluminescent patches glowed a calm blue color that showed he was relaxed and confident. The Viridians had been exploring space for thousands of years, and they had met many new species. This was just another routine first contact with a primitive civilization. Science coordinator Veltari worked at her station running the advanced scanning equipment that could tell them everything about the human ship. The scanners could see through any material and measure energy levels down to the smallest detail. They had used this technology to study countless species, and it never failed to give them complete information. The scanning beams swept over the human warship called Liberty and began sending back data. Veltari expected to see the usual things that primitive species built. Simple fusion reactors that barely worked, basic energy weapons that could not hurt anything important, and metal armor that would not stop a child's toy weapon. These new creatures would probably need centuries of help before they could join galactic civilization. But something was wrong with the readings. Veltari looked at her displays again and felt her bioluminescent patches flicker with confusion. The human ship's energy source was reading as impossible. The scanner said the reactor was producing more power than a small star, but that could not be right. She ran the scan again and got the same results. Zethka noticed Veltari's patches changing color and moved to look at her station. The readings made no sense to him either. According to their equipment, the human ship was carrying enough energy to destroy several planets. But the humans were acting like this was normal and not dangerous at all. Veltari tried different scanning modes to see if their equipment was broken. Every scan gave the same impossible results. The human reactor was not just powerful, it was using technology that the Viridians had abandoned long ago because it was too dangerous. The humans had somehow made a controlled stellar core and put it inside their ship, like it was no big deal. On the Liberty, Bennett watched her instruments. As the alien scanning beams became more intense, the aliens seemed very interested in their engine room, and they kept scanning the same areas over and over. She wondered if they were having trouble understanding human technology. Clark called from the engine room to report that the aliens were scanning their reactor very carefully. He said the beams were trying to see how the fusion chamber worked and how the magnetic containment fields held everything together. Clark was proud of his work on the reactor, and he hoped the aliens were impressed. Zethka called for Navigator Yelson to check their position and make sure they were not in danger. The readings from the human ship suggested it could destroy their vessel without even trying. Yelson confirmed they were at a safe distance, but safe distance might not mean anything if the humans could really control that much power. Veltari discovered more impossible things as she continued scanning. The human ship's armor was made of materials that should not exist. The metal had been changed at the atomic level to make it stronger than anything the Viridians could produce. Their most powerful weapons would barely scratch the surface of the human ship. The weapon systems on the Liberty were even more confusing. What the humans called basic plasma cannons were reading as siege weapons designed to crack planetary shields. The humans had enough firepower to level a city, and they seemed to think this was normal for a simple patrol ship. Phillips noticed that the alien ship was moving differently now. Instead of the smooth, confident movements from before, it was making quick, jerky motions like the pilot was nervous. She told Jake that the aliens might be worried about something, but she could not guess what. Bennett detected that the alien ship was sending out new types of scanning beams. These were much more powerful, and they seemed designed to look for specific things. The aliens were no longer just curious about human technology. They were actively searching for something that scared them. Zethka felt his patches turning yellow with concern as more data came in. The human ship was not just powerful, it was built, using engineering principles that the Viridians considered insane. The humans had taken technologies that could destroy civilizations and made them into everyday tools. Either these humans were incredibly wise, or they had survived wars that would have destroyed the Viridian civilization. Veltari found evidence that the human ship was not unique. The manufacturing techniques showed that these impossible vessels were being mass-produced. The humans were not just building one dangerous ship, they were making entire fleets of them. This suggested a civilization that was either preparing for war or had already survived conflicts that required such extreme weapons. Turner detected that the alien ship was broadcasting on many different frequencies at once. The signals were encrypted, but they seemed urgent, like the aliens were calling for help. Hayes suggested that maybe the aliens were not as friendly as they first appeared, but Jake thought they might just be surprised by human technology. Clark made some adjustments to the reactor to show the aliens how the system worked. He thought they might learn something useful from human engineering. He had no idea that his demonstration was making the Viridians even more worried because it proved that humans could control forces that the Viridians barely understood. Zethka made the decision to contact the collective's War Council. The War Council had not met for over 300 years because the galaxy was peaceful and there were no threats that required military action. But the humans represented something that the Viridians had never encountered before. The communication to the War Council explained that they had found a species that used forbidden technologies as routine equipment. The humans showed no fear of forces that could destroy worlds, and they built their ships like they expected to fight enemies that could crack planets. The War Council needed to decide if humanity was a threat to galactic peace or if there was something in the universe that humans knew about. But the Viridians did not. Veltari finished her analysis and felt her patches turn orange with fear. The human ship contained enough destructive power to sterilize the surface of inhabited worlds, but the crew acted like they were on a peaceful mission. Either humans were the most dangerous species in the galaxy, or they had learned to control powers that the Viridians thought were impossible to master safely. Hayes noticed that several new ships were approaching their position. The alien vessels were moving fast, and they appeared to be military ships. She warned Jake that the situation might be getting more serious than they had thought. Philip studied the energy patterns from the alien ships and realized that they were much less powerful than the Liberty. If there was going to be a fight, the humans would win easily, but she hoped it would not come to that. She wanted to learn about alien science, not destroy their ships. Jake decided to try communicating again using simple mathematical concepts and peaceful symbols. He did not want the first meeting between humans and aliens to end in violence. He had no way of knowing that the aliens were not planning to attack. They were trying to figure out if humanity was preparing to defend against something terrible that was coming from the dark spaces between the stars. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Liberty watching the stars through the main screen. His ship moved through empty space on what should have been another boring patrol mission. The Liberty was a big warship with thick metal, walls, and powerful engines that could push it faster than most people thought possible. Jake had been captain for 5 years now, and he knew every sound his ship made. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Bennett sat at her science station, running the usual scans of nearby space. She was looking for anything unusual, but expected to find nothing like always. The sensors showed empty space for millions of miles in every direction. Bennett was good at her job, and she kept the scanning equipment running perfectly. She had short brown hair and sharp eyes that missed very little. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of computers and the steady breathing of the crew. Communications Officer Steve Turner sat ready to send or receive any messages. Navigation Officer Amy Foster kept track of where they were going. Security Chief Linda Hayes watched the weapon systems, even though there was nothing to shoot at. Everyone was doing their job, but they were all a little bored. Chief Engineer Ryan Clark was down in the engine room making sure everything worked right. He had spent years making the Liberty's reactor better and stronger. Most people did not understand how he made the engines work so well, but Jake trusted him completely. Ryan could fix anything and make it work better than before. Dr. Karen Phillips worked in her lab studying space and trying to understand how things worked. She was very smart and could explain difficult things in ways that made sense. Jake often asked her questions about science stuff that confused him. She had been on the Liberty for 3 years, and everyone respected her knowledge. Then something changed. Bennett's scanning equipment started making different sounds. She looked at her screen and saw something that made her sit up straight. There was a ship out there, and it was not human. The ship was beautiful in a strange way, with smooth curves and what looked like crystal parts that caught the light from nearby stars. Bennett quickly checked her readings again to make sure she was not making a mistake. The ship was real, and it was about the same size as the Liberty, but shaped completely different. It looked like someone had grown it instead of building it with metal and tools. "Captain Morrison to the bridge," she called through the ship's communication system. Jake was already there, but she was so surprised that she forgot for a moment. "I'm right here, Bennett," Jake said, walking over to look at her screen. "What do you have?" "Unknown vessel, sir," Bennett said, pointing at the readings. "It appeared about 10 minutes ago, but it was hiding somehow. I only found it because I was running a deep scan pattern that Ryan suggested." Jake looked at the information on Bennett's screen. The alien ship was not moving toward them or away from them. It seemed to be just sitting in space doing something. Turner tried to contact the ship but got no answer on any of the usual radio frequencies that humans used. Hayes checked the weapon systems and found everything ready, but Jake told her to wait. They did not know if the aliens were friendly or dangerous, so it was better to be careful. The Liberty could fight if it needed to, but Jake hoped that would not be necessary. Foster started tracking the alien ship's movement patterns. It was slowly moving in a circle around the Liberty, but staying far enough away that it did not seem threatening. The movements were smooth and controlled, like the ship was being flown by someone who really knew what they were doing. Bennett kept scanning the alien vessel and found some interesting things. The ship seemed to be made of materials that her equipment could not identify. Parts of it looked like metal, but other parts looked like crystal or maybe something that was alive. The energy readings were strange too, but not in a dangerous way. Down. In the engine room, Clark felt the Liberty's systems working harder as Bennett used more power for her scans. He checked everything twice to make sure the ship could handle the extra load. The reactor was running perfectly and could give them much more power if they needed it. Phillips came to the bridge when she heard about the alien ship. She brought her own equipment to help study the vessel. She was excited because this was the first time humans had met aliens. She wanted to learn everything possible about their technology and culture. The alien ship suddenly started doing something different. Beams of light came from it and touched the Liberty's hull. Bennett's equipment showed that the aliens were scanning their ship just like Bennett was scanning theirs. The beams were not harmful, but they were very thorough. Hayes asked if they should raise shields, but Jake said no. If the aliens wanted to attack, they probably would have done it already. The scanning beams felt more like curiosity than aggression. It was like two people meeting for the first time and trying to figure out what the other person was like. Turner kept trying to make contact with different radio frequencies and signal patterns. He even tried using light signals and mathematical sequences that any intelligent species should understand. The alien ship did not respond, but it did not stop scanning either. Bennett watched her instruments as the alien beams moved all over the Liberty. They seemed very interested in the engine room and the weapon systems. The scans were much more advanced than anything humans had ever built. Bennett could barely detect them, and only because her equipment was very sensitive. Clark reported that the reactor was handling the scanning without any problems. He said the aliens seemed surprised by something, but he could not tell what. The energy patterns from their ship changed slightly, like they had found something unexpected. Phillips suggested that they try to communicate using basic mathematical concepts. She said that any species smart enough to build spaceships would understand simple mathematics. Turner started broadcasting basic number sequences and geometric patterns. After an hour of scanning, the alien ship moved a little closer. It was still far away, but close enough that they could see more details. The crystal parts seemed to glow with their own light, and the metal sections looked smoother than anything humans could make. Jake made the decision to wait and see what the aliens would do next. The Liberty was ready for anything, but he hoped this first meeting between humans and aliens would be peaceful. He had no idea that the alien crew was becoming more worried with every scan they completed. The humans looked peaceful enough, but their ship was showing readings that made no sense at all.